Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member Peters, for this hearing. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and please thank all the women and men with whom you serve for their excellent work keeping us safe. This hearing is about threats to the homeland. Before we begin, we must acknowledge a new and dangerous threat to our country and our Constitution: the President of the United States' refusal to promise a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the election. Today, I call on every person who has sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, including my fellow senators, to condemn the President's remarks and to recommit to ensuring a peaceful transfer of power, whatever the outcome of this election. Some of the members of this committee from both parties have already done so, and I appreciate their words. I hope that the rest of the committee will speak out as well. Now, to Director Wray. At last year's Threats to the Homeland hearing, we discussed the growing threat of ransomware attacks to our communities. Over the past 6 months, there has been a further uptick in ransomware attacks on hospitals and schools amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Just this month, the ransomware attack on a German hospital led to the death of a patient. And there has been a spate of ransomware attacks on our schools as districts have migrated to online learning. Our communities do not have the resources to effectively counter a wide range of cyber threats on their own, including ransomware. So, Director Wray, I appreciated in your opening comments your discussion of cyber threats. Could you drill down a bit more on what the FBI is doing to help protect state and local governments and other non-federal partners from ongoing cyber attacks and to deter malicious cyber adversaries?
So, Senator, I appreciate the question, and I do recall our exchange from last year. Certainly, ransomware is a particularly concerning part of the cyber threat that we face, and the threat of ransomware against state and local governments is particularly high. There are a variety of reasons why ransomware actors target municipalities, hospitals, police forces, right, et cetera. One of the things that we've done recently is through our National Cyber Investigative Joint Task Force, we have brought together a whole-of-government effort to focus across multiple agencies, intelligence community and law enforcement, on the most damaging ransomware variants. And some of that is through investigative activity disruptions. Some of that is through outreach and engagement, where we work very closely with CISA at DHS to help educate those entities on how to better harden and protect their infrastructure. Because certainly having good cyber hygiene, backups, et cetera, is one of the best defenses against ransomware. We are seeing what is something that concerns me in particular, a growing trend to see ransomware actors essentially sharing ransomware across different organized criminal activities. Okay. So that basically means that some of the most sophisticated forms of ransomware are now potentially available to less sophisticated actors. Okay. It's a sort of a version of cybercrime as a service, which is deeply troubling and just increases the risk. We're also seeing a greater trend of ransomware actors essentially piecemeal pushing out the information. In other words, rather than just locking it up and encrypting it and holding it ransom, they're essentially releasing little bits of time into the public domain as a way of increasing their leverage.
Pressure, right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I look forward to continuing to work with you on that. Director Wray, I also wanted to touch on another issue. I was pleased to see Tuesday's announcement about Operation Disruptor, an effort to stop drug trafficking on the dark web. This operation resulted in the seizure of hundreds of kilograms of illicit drugs, including fentanyl and dozens of firearms, as well as the arrest of 179 people. Needless to say, this was a significant operation. I appreciate the work of all of the federal agents who carried it out. Last week, I wrote a letter to you and the Attorney General asking for more information about efforts to combat drug trafficking on the dark web. Senators Cornyn and Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee joined the letter as well. We requested a reply by October 15th. Can you commit to a written response by that date, which is still 3 weeks away?
Well, I certainly will get you a response as promptly as possible. Not having had a chance to read the letter yet, I don't know how involved a response would mean, but certainly we appreciate your focus on the issue, and J-Code, which is the essentially the operation that we've stood up that spins off these things like Operation Disruptor is I think a really exciting, effective tool, a coordinated interagency tool. It's not just the FBI, to disrupt and dismantle darknet marketplaces, which is really a particularly important part of the opioid problem that we're all facing.
Absolutely. So I thank you. And I would look forward to a further conversation about what additional resources Congress could provide to help bolster those efforts. But I'm going to move on to one last question now, if that's all right. To Director Miller and Director Wray. Last December, a member of the Saudi military in the United States on a training mission killed 3 people and injured 8 at a naval air station in Pensacola, Florida. Al-Qaeda's Yemeni affiliate claimed credit for the attack, marking the terrorist group's first successful attack in the United States in several years. Director Miller and Director Wray, do you feel confident with the adequacy of screening done by the U.S. on foreign military trainees entering our country, and how would you assess the vulnerabilities of this exchange program? Start with you, Director Miller.
Thank you, Senator. Obviously, of great concern, and thanks for the question. Adaptive, innovative enemy that means us great harm. They found a loophole. The loophole's been closed. I'm confident now in the Department of Defense's efforts to recognize that how the security protocols and screening need to work. But they found a loophole and they exploited it.
Thank you. And Director Wray?
I do think that the Department of Defense has taken important strides to address the vulnerability was there. Of course, there's also an important role for the Saudi government to play, and they've been cooperative at different times on this issue, but that they're an incredibly important partner if we're going to be able to prevent something like what happened at Pensacola again.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate all of your work very much. And lastly, Director Miller, as a New Hampshire Senator, I thank you for everything you have done to bring the killers of James Foley to justice. Thank you.
Senator.
Senator,